Hi, my name is Alex Rowley. This is the persuasive speech for Module 6 for Communications 100. My thesis statement is going to be about the drug Narcan. My thesis is that Narcan should be available over the counter in all states in response to the opiate epidemic in this country. And I'd like to start this off by introducing my connection to this problem and my history of addiction and the recovery process. So when I was 13 years old, I had a double knee surgery. They did my left knee, and then when that healed, they did my right knee. I never, I never smoked cigarettes. I never smoked weed. I never drank. So that was the first thing that I had ever done, and I liked it. I didn't know what it was, but pretty soon I was physically dependent on it. Throughout high school, I had about 3 more knee surgeries because of football and wrestling, and my substance abuse problem kind of escalated. When I was 18 years old, I tried heroin for the first time, and I loved it. So that was in 2010. It's 2018 now. I just got my 2-year chip back in November. I've had 9 serious overdoses from heroin since 2010 alone. And so that's kind of my history and backstory to this problem. I have never been given Narcan. I have given other people Narcan, and I have also taken one of the drugs that is in Narcan called Naltrexone, which is an opiate blocker. You could take that either every day via pill form or once a month via a Vivitrol shot. And what it does is it blocks any effects of heroin or opiates. So you could try to get high, but you wouldn't feel it. It wouldn't work at all. This problem kind of started, in the early 90s. Purdue Pharma put out a new drug, Oxycontin, which was just a bigger and better version of Percocet. It's basically the same drug, just in a higher dose. They, they decided to kind of sway a lot of doctors into selling that product. They spent a lot of money and a lot of marketing into trying to convince the public and doctors that this was not a addictive drug, that it was a time released formula, so you only had to take it every, I think, 8 hours or something. And so the potential for abuse was less than it would be with Vicodin or Percocet. That's not what ended up happening. It turns out they knew the whole time about the effects of Oxycontin. Pretty soon, many young kids, including myself, got hooked on that drug. Eventually moved on to heroin. The reason why we need Narcan is because it is the only drug right now that has a viable solution for basically stopping some of these overdose deaths. You can use Narcan in 2 forms. It's available either via a syringe or a nasal spray. What it does is it essentially is a blocker. So the second that you get hit with Narcan, it will send the addict into what is called precipitated withdrawal. It takes them out of an overdose. The drug lasts about 45 minutes. So if you used a lot, you may have to get hit with another shot if you go back into an overdose. And there's been a lot of drugs similar to this. I mentioned earlier the Vivitrol shot and Naltrexone, and then you have Narcan. For alcoholics, you have Antabuse, which makes alcoholics sick if they drink. And I don't think that this is the be all end all of recovery, but I think that it should be widely available for public use. Most people know an addict now. They know someone who's been affected by the opiate epidemic, and it's one of those things that can save a lot of lives. You know, opiate addiction has just gone up since the 90s, since Purdue Pharma released OxyContin. Pretty soon addicts move on to heroin because it's better and it's cheaper, and you don't need a prescription for it. In 2015, there was 52,404 opiate-related overdoses. It's in the U.S. that year, or in 2015, and it's what it is the highest accident-related cause of death in the country. It surpassed car accidents. So now, the problem with this is that substance abuse and addiction has been treated for so long like a strictly criminal problem. And the solution was to lock them up. You had the war on drugs, you had Reagan with the whole just say no situation. And the problem is that if addiction really is, a disease or a psychological problem, treating them like criminals isn't the way to do it. I've been in and out of jail. I've had a lot of friends in and out of jail. And I've had many friends pass away from this. And having a drug like Narcan available to the public, just in case, it's the same as having CPR training. I have seen many addicts come out of an overdose from Narcan. I've done it a few times to other people myself. It was limited. It had a limited availability in Utah, where I was from. It's becoming a little bit more available as time passes. First responders have it, and I've seen it help a lot of people. One of my best friends, he overdosed, and I administered Narcan to him, and I thought we were going to lose him, but he came back. Narcan isn't a dangerous drug. It doesn't get you high. It's not a prescription drug like an opiate. All it does is block the receptors in your brain and throws the addict into a precipitated withdrawal and gets them out of the overdose. What the audience and myself can do is, you need to write to your, the politicians in your county, in your state, local, federal government, because things can't keep going this way. The policy has to be there. We need to start treating addicts like people that are sick. And one of the first steps in order to stop these crazy amount of deaths that have been happening is to have a life-saving drug like Narcan available. And the only way that's going to happen is if you let your voice be heard. You need to let people know how you feel, especially people in power. I've kind of been on the front lines of this disease. I've been in and out of rehab, in and out of jail, and I've lived in sober living environments. I've worked in a rehab, so I've seen a lot of what this can do. And it can save lives. That's a simple thing about it. It needs to be available, especially in this day and age. A couple of the resources I used are whyy.org. They had an article by Elena Gordon. It's called The Overdose Antidote, How Narcan Works. Another one was www.asam.org. It's the American Society of Addiction Medicine. It was just basically a pamphlet about the opiate addiction facts and figures for 2016. I also used a story out of, I think it was Narcan.org. It's the American Society of Addiction Medicine. It was just a basically a pamphlet about the opiate addiction facts and figures for 2016. I also used a story out of, I think it was Narcan.org. It's the American Society of Addiction Medicine. It was just a basically a pamphlet about the opiate addiction facts and figures for 2016. I also used It Works How and Why, which is a 12-step book. And that, as well as my personal experiences, are my references for this project. So thank you.